So this is the McBarge. Back in its heyday of the 1980s, it was a giant floating McDonald's restaurant built for the Expo 86 World's Fair in Vancouver. Not only was it a functional maritime fast food joint, it even had its own McDonald's Tidy Tug Dinghy, so trained seamen could scoop up loose trash out of the harbor. And even though this massive months-long affair was attended by everyone from Mounties to Lady Diana herself, Expo 86 was almost 40 years ago, and it's one of those things that's kind of just been lost to time, like the McDLT and the McBarge itself. Since 1986, she hasn't actively been used for anything. And even though there have been attempts to redevelop the vessel into everything from another restaurant to a homeless shelter, it's still just kind of sitting there, rusting out with no useful purpose. Like Ronald McDonald slowly realizing he's being automated into a touchscreen. Now I'm showing you this decades-old fast food boat because it's a good example of a vessel that once served a very specific purpose, feeding Canadian tourists. But in the years since, it's clearly outlived its usefulness. And there's actually a very different decades-old, highly problematic boat that's still floating around New York, that's still in use today, but is finally being put out to that giant food court at sea very soon. Okay, so this thing you're looking at right here, it kind of looks like a big white container ship, but it's actually a fully functioning prison. No, this isn't a takeoff here on that Stallone Schwarzenegger movie Escape Plan, and the thing wasn't designed to trap Ray Breslin. This is a real, functional jail in New York City. How, and why, and what? So the official name for this thing is the Vernon C. Bain Correctional Center. It's a 5-story barge that contains 800 beds. It's got tiny little portholes that let natural light in, and on the outside, inmates can play basketball on a caged deck. And our cruise ship here is currently anchored in the Bronx, right across from Rikers Island. Rikers Island, of course, being home to New York City's largest jail complex. According to nonprofits working to end mass incarceration, the facility itself is the site of an ongoing human rights crisis. And people who have been locked up there or have a loved one incarcerated have called Rikers Island a torture chamber where dogs are treated better than humans, because it's a place where you are not a real person. And it's not just the facility's well-documented squalid and dangerous conditions we're talking about. This year to date, at least 8 inmates have already died while behind bars there. But it's the fact that the majority of the people incarcerated there are often awaiting trial, and detainees often spend 4 times as many days locked up there than the national average. But back in 2019, the New York City Council voted to close down the Rikers Island complex and replace it with a network of smaller jails by 2027, a plan that's already fallen behind schedule. Anyway, back in 1992, 6 years after that floating McDonald's in Canada was decommissioned, the Vernon C. Bain Correctional Center arrived in New York in order to help ease overcrowding on Rikers. Believe it or not, the use of maritime jails in the USA has been controversial since the Revolutionary War. Like when a bunch of prison ships, also infamous for squalid conditions, sunk in New York Harbor. But this specific vessel, which wasn't the only jail boat in use in New York, came to the city back in the 80s and 90s when Rikers' population went up thanks to drug arrests during the crack epidemic. And then, when Rikers' population fell again in the mid-90s, the boat emptied back out. But it was eventually reopened, first as a juvenile justice center by Mayor Rudy Giuliani, pictured here in a more recent photo. Today, unless you count that restaurant on a boat in Brooklyn that charges like $20 for 2 oysters, Vernon is New York's only remaining floating facility dedicated to high crimes at sea. And as part of that larger plan to fix New York City's correctional system, this jail boat is finally shutting down.
I am beyond pleased that that place is getting closed down, where my son lost his life in the most horrific, torturing way.
That's a mother whose son was locked up on the boat while awaiting a trial in a gang conspiracy case. He was originally on Rikers Island, but when the complex was overrun with violence and the coronavirus back in 2020, he volunteered to be transferred to the boat. From there, he told his mom he'd stare out the porthole pretending he was riding a jet ski. But he grew to complain of heat, mold, and rodents that would chew through his food containers.
He didn't go in there sick. The fact that they just didn't care. There's nothing really to say other than that they didn't care. And it wasn't their son, it wasn't their husband, it wasn't their child. So it's like, so what?
He ended up suffering 2 seizures in the summer of 2021, and after his second, he died en route to the hospital. The cause of death was a complication of a treatable form of meningitis, a rodent-borne viral disease.
It's 2 forms of meningitis. The one my son had showed signs. There's one that kills you in 24 hours. He didn't die that way. So the fact that he got sick July 6th, and they just didn't care to figure it out.
The New York State Attorney General investigated his death, but they couldn't confirm any allegations of improper care.
I know in my heart, in my soul, that if they would have continued to take him to those doctor's visits after July 12th, the ones that he needed, the ones that I clearly see that on the medical papers, it says that, like, he denied it. He can't deny that because he doesn't have access to you guys. They just didn't take him. They just didn't take him. And if they would have took him, they would have caught it.
Vernon here is set to be completely emptied out by the end of the first week of November, and the city hasn't said yet what's going to happen to it. It certainly doesn't sound like a great place for a fast food restaurant, and the last time they tried that, it just kind of languished in Canadian waters for several decades. But we do know what's happening to its occupants. Once it's shut down, hundreds of inmates and staff members are simply going over to Rikers Island itself. Here's the co-director of an advocacy group trying to shut the whole place down.
It's good that the mayor, the city is moving forward with closing the boat, but transferring people from the boat to Rikers Island is not a good solution, and we need to make investments in communities and address the mental health crisis of half of the population that's on Rikers Island, because that transfer is just shifting people from the frying pan into the fire.